Well, welcome back to the After Hours Ag. We hope you've been enjoying the other podcasts. And in this podcast, we have another special guest. We know that farmers love to talk about markets and where are we going, and especially in this time of kind of tumultuous markets, in certain markets anyway. We have a very special guest. We have Rusty Halvorson in from KFGO.
Thank you.
He is an ag correspondent over there.
Yep.
Works with Sarah Heinrich, who is married to somebody from my hometown. So we had that to touch base on before we got going here. But very excited to have Rusty. Rusty is usually the one doing the interviews, doing the corresponding, and I'm very excited to hear some of the stories. Rusty, would you give us a little bit of a background on yourself? Where did you come from? Where are you going? How are things going?
Well, they're going well, and thanks you guys for having me on here. Like you said, I'm usually behind the microphone, the one asking the questions. So the tables have turned, and to say I'm completely comfortable, yeah, sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But thanks you guys for having me. And I am a farm broadcaster and have been for over a couple decades now. Got started in the late 90s in farm broadcasting. I've been in radio actually since I was about 15, 16 years old. That's where I got my start in radio. And it's kind of a family thing. I started in farm broadcasting, kind of joining two of my interests together. One was radio, and the other one was farming. And from the farming side of things, my grandparents on my mom's side and my dad's side, they both farmed and grew up. My folks grew up on the farm in the Wolford, North Dakota area, along Highway 17 there, up north, north central North Dakota, for folks who may not be familiar, kind of northeast of Rugby, the geographical center in North America. Okay, so my folks grew up on the farm, and so growing up, I was familiar with farming and spent a lot of vacation time on the farm, and some summers, throwing around hay bales, square bales, also known by some as idiot cubes.
That's what we called them too. So I told you we grew up on a dairy farm.
Yep.
We never had square bales.
Oh, really?
We never did, no. Until after I had graduated from high school and everything, then my brother brought in sheep, and then they had square bales. I'm like, there's a reason they call these things idiot cubes.
Yep.
Is there a difference, between the two, or why you should have one or the other?
The little square ones are probably just easier to stack.
Oh.
The big ones are less manual labor.
And the ones I was tossing around, I was working, helping out my uncle during the summer. On my mom's side, his name, Larry Folman. He's passed, but his friends called him Bim Folman. And I'd spend some summertime on the farm with him, and he had horses, quarter horses. And so we baled up sloughs and whatnot. And we had the square bales. Yep. So, yeah, but the folks grew up on farms, and I grew up around it. And then for radio, my dad's a sports broadcaster, and my uncle Les is also a sports broadcaster up in the Botno, North Dakota area. And so I've been around radio since I was just a kid. And when I was in high school, I was 15 years old, just turning 16, and I wanted to make some money because I just got my driver's license, and I wanted to pay for gas, and I wanted to pay for shotgun shells and bullets because I hunted quite a bit out in Williston, where I grew up, born in Devil's Lake, but grew up in Williston. And so looking around for a job, and they had a part-time opening on the weekends at 660 Keys Country is what they called themselves back then. So I went in and read some script, and they recorded me, and gave me a part-time job. So that's how I started in radio. That was the summer of 1990. So yeah, and then from there, worked at the radio station in high school, and went, after I graduated, went to UND Williston, which is now Williston State College, and went there 2 years, got an Associate of Science degree in pre-veterinary medicine, and went to NDSU with the intention of becoming a veterinarian, probably a large animal veterinarian. And I got to Fargo and started talking with my advisor at the time, and he said, "What are your interests? What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I've been working on the radio, And I really do like agriculture and farming. And I kind of am interested in farm radio because one of my dad's coworkers from Devil's Lake by the name of Lyle Romine was a farm broadcaster. And Lyle and Dad worked together when I was just a little kid in the 70s. They worked together. And Lyle moved away to start what was known as Ag America at the time in Fargo. So I said I kind of like the idea of kind of, blending agriculture and radio because I like them both. Yeah. And so the advisor set me up with a general agriculture curriculum because at the time when I went to NDSU, they didn't have the Ag Communications program. They didn't have it yet. They did eventually develop it. But at the time, I took general agriculture courses with a minor in mass comm. So that's kind of how I got started. And then when I was close to graduation in it was probably October of 1996, I figured, well, I'm going to graduate here in December. And I 4.5 years of school for me. So I better find a job, I suppose, So I went and knocked on Lyle's door because they had their studios here in Fargo. And I said, how does one get a start, doing what you do? And he was first shocked that I walked through his door because he hadn't seen me since I was a kid, just a little kid in Devil's Lake. And it just so happened that they were kind of looking for a little bit of help. And so he said, well, you can start doing a little part-time stuff for us and try out the farm broadcasting thing. If you want to be a farm broadcaster, it's going to take you at least a couple of years to get good at the job. And if you'd be willing to stick around for 2 years, we'll see if it works out. And so I ended up staying there 20 years. So
it worked out.
Time flies.
So now when he said it's going to take you 2 years to get good, mm-hmm. What do you think changed in you or in how you did that over those first couple of years? What do you think what opened your eyes, or what were those things?
When he said it'd take a couple of years to, become a farm broadcaster, it takes you at least that long just to know your way around all different segments of agriculture. Because when I started with Lyle, I said, I'm not an expert in anything agriculture. I'm not an expert, but I know a little bit about a whole bunch of different things. Mm-hmm. And he said, that's perfect. You can work with that. You can learn. And so he said, it would take at least a couple of years of being in the studio and being out on the road, going to farm shows, going to meetings, learning what the topics were, learning what the trends were, what the right questions were, the things that were going on. So that's just a bare minimum to even begin to understand the industry, So, yeah.
Yeah. So you said you started out around 15 years old.
Yeah.
Recorded some tracks. You were working for a country station at the time.
Absolutely.
Now were you a DJ? Were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long were your shows?
Usually a 4-hour air shift, and country music, hot new country music at the time, which today are now classics.
The classics.
Yeah, you can tune in.
Classics.
Tune in. You'll probably hear those on Saturdays on KFGO.
Shameless plug for KFGO and the Solid Gold Morning Show. Scotty Winston playing the Solid Gold classics of yesteryear, which were the hot new country hits when I was a DJ. So if that doesn't make you feel a little bit older some days, I don't know what will. But yeah, Clint Black, Trisha Yearwood, Garth Brooks, Alabama. They've been good since the 80s anyway, So the hot new country back then and golden oldies now. So yeah, 4-hour air shifts, Saturdays, Sundays, usually Sunday night. Some of my fond memories were being on Sunday night games for the Vikings. We are a Vikings affiliate out there. So running the board for the Vikings game and getting able to listen to it on the radio. That was fun. I enjoyed that very much. One season they had Jesse Ventura as the color commentator for the Vikes.
Oh, my.
That was very interesting that year.
Wow.
Did you have to bleep much stuff out? Or
No.
He was very good at that?
No.
He probably had his governor, potential governor.
Yeah, he had ambitions at the time.
He was practicing for that, maybe.
Ambitions. But yeah, those were fun times when got to run the board for the Viking shift because you could listen to the game, and that was fun. And I ran the board a lot when my dad was a sports broadcaster on the weekends for ball games, whether it be baseball games, especially in the summertime. I would produce his broadcast from back in the studio, and I enjoyed that too.
Talk about the relationship with your dad a little bit, because he's in the State Hall of Fame in broadcasting. Is that correct?
Yep, he is in the North Dakota Hall of Fame for sports writers and sports broadcasters.
Okay.
Yep.
And I did a small amount of research before this, and I found out that your uncle Les is also in it. The only brothers in that Hall of Fame together is what it said.
That.
Well, that's what it said anyway.
I'll be danged. Huh.
How about that? Anyway, talk about your dad, or how did he affect you maybe going into broadcasting?
Well, like every lot of little kids, you look up to your dad and want to be like him and emulate him and make him proud, your folks proud, So, I think, he is proud that I'm in radio and have done so well over the years. But, just being able to watch him behind the scenes, doing play-by-play or being in the studio with him on occasion when he was doing an air shift, just watching him and knowing that you can get up on the microphone, you can be very prompt and very succinct and do everything. But that's the guy sitting in the lazy boy at night at home, is just a person, just a guy, Yeah. So it takes it kind of opens your eyes to radio people, or for the by and large, are just people like everybody else, So yeah, and I do like WKRP in Cincinnati too.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's a bit of a throwback to the old days.
I don't quite get the reference.
So WKRP in Cincinnati was a TV sitcom based at a radio station in Cincinnati. And if I had to take a guess, it probably ran from like 1979 to 1983, 84, something like that. And it followed the antics of the on-air staff and the general manager of the station. And the farm broadcaster at WKRP in Cincinnati was a guy by the name of Les Nessman, who won the Buckeye News Hawk of the Year award like 5 times or something like that. Won the Silver Sow award several times. And Les was kind of a dork, I guess you could say. But he was the first farm broadcaster I guess I'd ever been exposed to, was Les Nessman on TV. Yeah, but so just watching Dad growing up, and then I'd go to home basketball games with him, sit in the booth. I'd go to baseball games, football games with him when I was in grade school. Just sit in the booth, put on the headphones, listen to him, watch the game. So that was really fun. Not a lot of kids get to do that. And we took a few road trips. We'd be on the road. We'd go to baseball games in Bismarck and basketball games in Minot, stuff like that. So yeah, just fond memories, good times. Then we hunted and fished together all the time. Yeah, so
you saying the sports broadcasting, I just realized that we actually had a sports broadcaster who he's out of Jamestown.
Okay.
And he actually was one of my parents' hired hands, Mark McKenzie. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, we've crossed paths.
He worked for my parents for a year or two when he was in high school, because he's originally from Medina as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, I thought I'd touch base
small
with
world,
that. Yeah, right? Small world,
especially when it comes to radio in North Dakota.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but so just watching Dad over the years. He said he and Les just set good examples of working hard and working for the audience, and especially when you're doing basketball games, the focus should be on the kids on the court. It's not about you; it's about what's going on the floor. So.
Right, that's what people are listening for. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So you went from working at the country station. You did that through high school then.
Yep.
Did you do anything during college? Were you on the radio at all during college, or was that kind of an off time?
That was a little bit of an off time for radio. When I went to NDSU, actually, instead of when I'd go home to Williston for summer breaks, instead of working at the radio station, I worked at the NDSU Research Extension Center out there, driving tractor, and I really enjoyed that job. That was a really, really fun job. I could. When you get to sit in the tractor just from set hours, 8 to 5, and then it's done. That's pretty fun. when you're a real farmer and sometimes the work doesn't seem like it's ever going to end, that's a different ball game right there. But yeah, but I enjoyed working at the research center just as seasonal labor, just for the summer. But yeah, I liked it a lot.
And what were they doing in Williston at that time? What kind of research were they working on?
They were raising mostly certified seed, and then Neil Rivland out there did a lot of work with safflower because safflower can grow really well in arid environments, and of course, western North Dakota, eastern Montana, a dry environment out there, and safflower has a lot of potential for industrial uses and things like that. So research on that, and then otherwise mostly small grains, some corn trials, things like that. Yep.
Yeah. So you talked about your dad and your uncle as being kind of some of those mentors. Do you have any other mentors in the broadcasting side of things that have kind of helped you get to where you are today?
Yep, definitely. And certainly the biggest mentor I had was Lyle Roman. Because since he knew me from such a young age and he had such a great friendship with my dad, he trusted me with a lot of his knowledge and just different tips and things you should do and things to avoid, and even from the smallest little things like setting up at a farm show at the at the fairgrounds in Minot, which door to go into for the State Fair Center and where the easiest route is to get to places, things like that. Kansas City National Association of Farm Broadcasting Convention. That's held every year at the Westin Crown Hotel, and he showed me about every nook and cranny to get from the parking garage up to the meeting rooms, and just little things that a guy learns to appreciate. So, super good guy, great broadcaster. He had a lot of friends in the industry and well respected. We lost him back in 2010, but he was a great guy.
Yeah, those mentors take that learning curve and flatten it out a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, some of those mentors. Yeah, those experiences that you had growing up, I'm sure it just put you in that spot. You were well situated to kind of move into radio.
Yeah. Set up to succeed, I guess, if you put the work in. Yep.
That's right. Yep. Now, did you have any farmers that you used as a sounding board, or anybody that, you kind of go back to and often or have gone back to in the past?
Yeah. Well, I always valued the opinions of my relatives who farmed or still on the farm, like my Uncle Lyman in Wolford, North Dakota. And being in the radio studio and looking at things that are the big national pictures and things that are going on in Washington, D.C. and legislation and things like that. Sometimes you can get lost on, the real world on the ground kind of situation where what folks are really thinking about. And I'll ask, what do you think of this that's going on? What do you think of that's going on? Just their input, So, and then throughout the career, I would have to say that I've come to know some of the farmer leaders from the different producer organizations that when I've called on them looking for, an answer or insight or where I should look to get more information, I want to dig into this story. Who should I talk to? Can you point me in the right direction? Over the years, that's been invaluable too. So, yeah.
Did you ever have a moment, maybe earlier in your career where you had this big aha moment? It kind of something dawned on you, something hit you. You understood things that you're like, man, why didn't I understand this 5 years ago?
Well, I would say for an aha moment, when it came to my early years of working with Lyle, there was an opportunity to interview the Agriculture Secretary of the United States at the time, who was Dan Glickman. And Lyle had to be out of the studio, and I would be in the studio in the afternoon. It was like 2:33 in the afternoon. And he helped, he said to the press person at the time, they were looking to be on the farm news and get a message out to the growers in the area. And so Lyle entrusted me to speak to the Secretary of Agriculture, and I was just a couple of years out of college at the time, and I had gone from, hey, it's fun to play, Joe Diffie, singing a song about some guy who loves his girlfriend and paints it on the town water tower, to talking to the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. And that's when it kind of dawned on me, like, oh, okay, we better take this kind of seriously. This isn't spinning CDs on the weekend anymore. This is important stuff. So that's when it kind of hit home to me that, it's a responsibility, and you got to take it seriously. So
that's a really cool story. How often do you get to have interactions with people on that type of a level? Is that a yearly thing for you? Is that a it only comes around every 5 to 10 years? How often do those kind of opportunities come up?
For most broadcasters, you have the opportunity at least once a year for that kind of thing. The National Association of Farm Broadcasters, which is our professional organization, each year they host an event where farm broadcasters can go to Washington, D.C., and it's called Washington Watch. And you spend 2 days in the Capitol, and it's all organized by other members of the NAFB. They have a committee, Washington Watch Committee, where broadcasters will line up visits at USDA's headquarters in Washington, D.C., and they will bring in several undersecretaries of agriculture and bring in those folks, and also folks from the Risk Management Agency. And so you get to meet and talk and hear from those folks and ask them questions one-on-one. And then also we have legislative sessions where we go over to the House. I forget the exact building it is, but one of the office buildings. And it's usually in the House Agriculture, Longworth. It's in the Longworth building, the House Agriculture Committee hearing room. And, one of the near the actual hearing room. But and we bring in farm state lawmakers and sometimes urban lawmakers just who have an interest in agricultural issues. And the lawmakers come in and they give maybe their one or two thoughts of what they're working on or what they think's important in legislation or what's new in farm news in the Capitol. And then broadcasters have a chance to ask them questions that may relate back to their region, their growers, that kind of thing. So, yeah, at least once a year, you get an opportunity to do something like that. But once you establish relationships and good relationships with communication staff and the lawmakers or the individuals at USDA, once you get them on the phone, usually it's pretty good once you get their trust and they understand that you're a farm broadcaster, who your audience is, and that you serve agriculture as a farm broadcaster. They're usually pretty open to taking phone calls and answering questions.
Yeah. Are you able to, when you get that time to meet with them, are you able to get a good amount of prep time for that? Do you kind of already know what they're going to talk about, or is it kind of they're coming in with an agenda and you need to be on your feet and ready to go with whatever they're going to say?
A little of both. Yeah, a little of both. If you have for example, you have a run-of-the-mill press call where it'll be the lawmaker and a pool of reporters on the telephone. They may have one or two items that they want to talk about that they're working on. And then if they open it up time for questions, you can ask them something off topic, so to speak. Yep. So it's when you do have that opportunity, it's good to, have your powder dry, ready to roll. Yep.
Yeah. You talked about these very important people you get to talk to, these opportunities you get there. What's something, if you look back on your career so far and you say, boy, I'm just really proud of this. Maybe it was a story, maybe it was a certain interview, or just maybe something that somebody said to you over the years that really sticks to you as I'm really proud of this, or multiple things.
Well, I guess I looking at everything, I have been fortunate enough to win. I've won several awards through the National Association of Farm Broadcasting. Maddie contributed to one of those awards when it came to a video award that I won. Well, we won together. They gave it to me, but you weren't around.
I know, right? Reddy had picked me up on the free agent market already.
Yeah.
So,
but Maddie and I worked on a story about a local friend of ours, Toby McPherson, who has a spraying business, Tall Towers Aviation.
Who's actually coming in for an interview very soon.
Oh, great.
So,
super duper. Great guy. You're going to love it. So just some of the awards and recognition that I guess I've gotten through the work I've done over the years, whether it be for newscasts or market casts or feature news or things like that, that's rewarding. But as for, I guess one rewarding thing is once you do develop a trust and understanding with either elected officials or officials in Washington, D.C., or even leaders of commodity organizations or just the farmer next door down the road, their trust that when you speak to them and ask them questions, you actually care about what they have to say. And if you put it on the air, you won't twist what they're trying to say. Just trust. I guess that's the biggest thing for me. Yep, very important.
Yeah, I think that amount of trust, it's interesting. So we've been posting some reels and stuff of what we said out here. Mm-hmm. And Madison posted this one from the one we did this week.
What'd you do, Maddie?
He didn't try to twist it or anything.
No.
But when I listened to it, it sounded like we were talking about field meals.
Okay.
And it sounded like I said lasagna was my favorite. And I'm like, that's not even true.
Okay.
You said number one.
I said the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
So anyway,
so it's not
amazing.
Number one.
It's amazing how you can twist those things.
One of many. Yeah.
It's one of many, but I mean, my favorite would be 3-bean casserole.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good.
That is good. But yeah, if you break that trust, whether it's with the audience or whether the people you're trying to cover, if you break that trust, it's hard to regain it. So yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, for sure. As you've been covering agriculture now for 23 years, right?
Yep.
What's a trend, or what's something that stayed constant? What's something that has
it's been just more really than 23. Mathing.
A lot.
Yeah, it's been, anywho, whatever.
97, 26.
26.
Yes. Who's counting?
Long time. Who's counting? Yeah. 1,000 years.
Rounding the corner on your third decade.
Yeah, here. Exactly.
What has stayed constant over that time?
Constant? What has stayed constant over that time? On my part or the things that I talk about on the air?
Either one.
On my part, it would be my everyday curiosity about what's going on. Because if you're not interested in what you do, you're not going to do a good job. So just that curiosity of what's going on in agriculture, because every day is going to be different when it comes to farm news. Every day is going to be different when it comes to markets. Another constant, I would say, is the pride that farm families take in what they do. And you would know, coming from a farm family, just the pride, whether it be in the land or the product or the way you do things, the way you raise crops or raise livestock. Those kind of traditions, being proud of what you do. I guess that's always been a constant.
Yeah. So what are some things that have really shifted since you first started?
Shifted would be, one would be genetically engineered crops. When I went to college in the 90s, we were just on the cutting edge of widespread acceptance of biotechnology in the U.S., I guess. And then another thing would have been in the early 2000s, the renewable fuel standard and the effects that has had on that policy in Washington, D.C., on the effects of what we grow for food and fuel, and some of the debates, whether for or against that. That's been new since I first walked on the scene. Those would have to be, I think, the two big ones. And then, we have xenotransplantation. That'd be another big one. We've successfully put I believe a part from a pig into a person. So that's big. Yeah. And they were talking when I first started, I forget which university official I had talked to, a professor, a very smart person, about how we will be able to do this someday, and someday's here now. So yeah, that's a change.
Yeah, those are some hot button issues right there.
Just small stuff, Just
small stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But those would stick out in my mind, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, GPS for tractors, that's a big one. Auto steer, that's another big one. Yeah. Drones, that's another big one. Yeah. All of the smart things we can do now with agriculture when it comes to variable rates for fertilizers and chemicals, and those are a lot of big advances over the last 30 years or so.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So looking back. Now, if you look forward, if you're looking into your crystal ball here, what are the things that you see coming down the pipe in the next 10, 20, 50 years? And 50 years, you're probably retired at that point. But what do you see? What do you see for the future of agriculture as that may look?
Well, I think we're still trying to get our mind around it on how it can be beneficial, but definitely AI, artificial intelligence, computing skills. And I think, people are working on where that fits into agriculture. A lot of the things that they're doing on a small scale, a grand farm, when it comes to autonomy in tractors or different applications, I think autonomy will be very big, especially for those generations 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And I think that's going to be mainly due to, labor, trying to find workers. They already have things like autonomous grain carts that can follow the combine around and go to different parts of the field and things like that. And that'll grow steadily, slowly, surely, once the technology comes around, and making it affordable for most farmers, making it usable for most farmers, because some of these things may work for farmers on a larger scale with maybe, shall we say, deeper resources when it comes to being able to afford these kind of things. But once that's more commonplace and more affordable, it's future generations will probably come to rely on it more and more.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with those things. We talked about those hot button issues, and what if you had the chance? So I think a lot of your market is, or a lot of the people that are listening to what you put out are farmers, or at least people in our region is a lot of what KFGO is. I mean, I'm sure you guys have people all over the place, but if you had the opportunity to, to kind of speak to people that have no idea about farms, somebody in a city, somebody who, has no idea what farmers go through, what the difficulties are, what the joys are, what kind of things would you like to tell them, or would you like to dispel myths? What are things that you think are misnomers that you'd really like to share?
Are you familiar with Clarkson's Farm? Is that it, Madison? Clarkson's Farm. Yes. It's about, let's see, I believe his first name is Jeremy.
Oh, from Top Gear, that guy?
Yeah, that guy.
So I think he was on Top Gear, and he was all about cars and stuff, and then I think he was looking for the next thing to do, and so he just bought a farm, had no idea about anything.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. I would suggest people watch that, because he is, like Madison said, he just jumped into farming with absolutely no background in it whatsoever. And he discovers the daily joys and the daily heartaches when it comes to farming. Everything from raising livestock to not being able to plant a crop because it's too wet, not being able to harvest a crop because it's too wet, dealing with regulation, dealing with local laws, dealing with neighbors, dealing with all sorts of things. So for people who don't understand farming and what it entails, take a gearhead and put him in the British countryside and make him live that life. I think that's a good start. But that's better than anything I could tell somebody to do. Yeah. Check it out. Yeah.
It sounds very similar to the story of the guy who made the farming game. Have you ever played the farming game?
I have not played the farming game, but I'm very aware of it.
Right. Yeah. That's basically what they did. And the whole farming game, they started out. I don't remember where he started out, but he I think it was out in Washington or Oregon, one of those two.
Okay.
Basically, that's what he did.
Yeah.
He went and he just started farming, and it was when things were cheap, and then the 80s hit, and things went backwards, and the farming game was what was able to save their farm.
Wow.
Yeah, there's actually a really good podcast on that. I think it was I'm forgetting which podcast it was now, but I know Malcolm Gladwell put it on his on revisionist history. So, but it was an interesting podcast, very similar.
Yeah.
But
I've had people ask me all the time, so do you play the farming game? No, I'm sorry, I've not.
I think that also harkens back to, the people here on the radio also have lives.
Oh.
And, maybe they have other interests. You know what I mean? Like Rusty and I share a common interest in science fiction.
Yeah, true.
Big Star Wars fans.
And golfing.
We
like golf, yeah.
And so, you never know what that person is into. And I also wanted to ask Rusty, it's been a crazy winter here.
Sure.
Or lack thereof winter.
Yeah. What
is we've had a few farmers reach out to us. I think we put it out on our stories that you were coming in, and they had questions, what are they to expect here with this weird winter in the spring?
Yeah. First, I would say, if you want a good, reliable source for those kind of questions, Daryl Richardson of North Dakota Agricultural Weather Network, he'd be a wonderful guest for you guys sometimes.
Yeah.
So he knows far more than I could ever say. But if I had to wing a guess out there and what this means, so as we visit today on February 8th, Giving Hearts Day, and we started off with temperatures this morning in the 40s, now hovering in the 30s. As we visit here today, we have rain spitting into snow. I mean, for February, that's a little bit odd. The only really cold snap we had, the only real storm we've had in this part of the region, Fargo-Moorhead, the Christmas storm, and then the cold snap of early mid-January. We had that cold spill there. If I had to take a guess, there's nothing scientific about this whatsoever, but if I had to take a guess, Mother Nature in March, somewhere around the Ides of March, beware the Ides of March, they say, I think we still have the potential for a really good spring, if not early summer snowstorm. I see no reason not to. Now, having said that, it feels like it's going to be an early spring this year. So if we get into the fields a little bit earlier, great. As long as the soil temps will support good emergence, super. But then you got to worry about that crazy event in May where you might get a windstorm or you might get a freak freeze where all the low spots are not so good. We've got to watch for that. So when people say, oh, it's going to be a great spring, we can get in the field early. Do you really want to, though? Do you really want to? Because we've been nipped, so to speak, by that kind of weather in the past. So, but at least at this point, it doesn't look like we have any widespread flooding concerns for the spring. So that's, I guess, something positive.
It also seems like in our region here, we've gotten a decent amount of moisture, not necessarily snow, but it does seem like, today's raining. We're supposed to get like a half inch. Is that about right?
Yeah. And then I'd heard, I think before I left the studio, we maybe, again, just in this neck of the woods, maybe get an inch or two of accumulating snow, but it's so doggone warm out there that a lot of it, I think, is going to melt when it hits the ground. But,
right.
But I'm not the weather guy.
Yeah, right. No,
we're trying to get Too Tall Tom in here.
Exactly.
Too Tall Tom Tremansky.
Right. We're kind of the armchair, the under the table weather people, if you will.
Yeah, no problem. But no, I think this spring, unless something unforeseen happens, which it always can, it seems like we could have a good start to spring. Now, will we get timely rains, good timely rains when we need them? Some will, some won't.
Depends on where you are, I think, is what Too Tall Tom always says.
Some will, some won't.
I think another thing to bring up quickly is that we had heard from the farmers was markets, and not only domestic here, but also overseas.
Yep. I would say along that end, somebody I depend on for knowledge, Frayne Olson, North Dakota State University, very smart guy. But just on today's activity, we had a new WASDE report from USDA, World Ag Supply Demand Estimates, and they said in that report that Brazilian production this year a little bit smaller than earlier expectations by about 1 million metric tons, according to USDA's numbers. So in the overall scheme of things, not all that much. The trade was expecting a bigger cut. We ended a little bit higher in soybeans today, wheat and corn a little bit lower. Now, Brazil and Argentina, it appears that they will have a pretty big crop. Brazil looks like they'll have the second biggest crop ever for them. So that's going to put up some pretty good export competition when it comes to maybe selling into the Chinese market for sure. When it comes to one of the best things I've heard when it comes to soybeans, the markets and demand, it is that we are crushing more soybeans domestically because of the increase in crush capacity. We've got the new plant operating in Jamestown. We've got one coming online in Castleton, plans for another in the state. And just in the U.S. in general, we're crushing more soybeans. In fact, I think December was at or near a soybean crush record. So we've got good demand there. That's good. As far as export markets, we have been kind of flat as of lately for sales. And there's been some talk that USDA might have to ratchet down their marketing year expectations. USDA bumped up their soybean ending stocks number today. I think it's 315 million bushels. There's just, for the bulls in the market, there's just not a whole lot of ammunition out there right now. Not a whole lot to get excited about. In fact, USDA came out with their income forecast from the ERS just this week. And they said that after a record year of net cash farm income in 2023, a record year of, I believe, is $156 billion. And that's all segments. That's crops, livestock, whether it be cattle, hogs, sheep, turkeys, whatever crops you raise, from canola to sunflowers to wheat, corn, soybeans. Net farm income, the forecast this year could be closer to, I believe it was $116 billion, if I remember right. I might be getting my numbers mixed up, but the headline read a record drop in net farm income. Now, part of that was due because we had a new record, and then we are going to be down this year. Lower cash receipts for crops and livestock, lower government payments, according to that USDA report. So, that is the nature of agriculture. It can be very, very high one year and not so much the next. But Joel Heidkamp will tell you, farmers are doing okay out there. Farmers are doing okay. And farmers are doing okay, but not everybody's doing okay. Not everybody. So whenever one thing I did learn early on, Adam, be careful how you phrase something on the radio when you're talking about farm stuff, especially when it comes to markets or when you talk about farm income, because no matter how good the story may sound for one person, that's not always the case for everybody. And so if you've got a listener out there who is struggling and who isn't seeing record income, or maybe he was one of the fellows who lost his crop due to a freak storm or whatever it might be, don't forget about that person too, because you've got a wide audience and they're all going through a lot of different things. So just be careful when you say something. And just because, say, corn, huge rally today, 15 cents higher. Well, for the guy who's trying to feed his cows or who has to buy that corn, that's not all the best news. He's not happy that day. So just, keep it balanced. Remember, you're serving a wide audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good advice. Heck, just in life, that's good advice.
I was just going to say, in anything at all, if something's really good for one person, it's probably bad for someone else somewhere.
Not necessarily good for everybody.
Yeah, or maybe not seen the same way.
Yep.
So you said the overall farm did you say income is down to
net cash farm income this year, $116 billion, which is still a hefty amount. It's a hefty amount, but
just so for reference, what was last year's?
156.
Oh wow, so that's a huge cut then.
Yeah, 25%.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you come off of the record. coming down is always something. I was visiting with my mom for a little while today, so she still has beef cattle.
Okay.
And still has some dairy cattle too.
Okay.
But anyway, she was talking to me about beef cattle, and one of her questions was, she said she had just gotten done talking with the insurance person about they had insured a certain price on their cattle, and they had beaten that price, and that was great.
Yeah, that's great.
That was great. That's great, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but they were telling her that, you know, normally beef cattle, as far as the market is concerned, is on a 10-year cycle, is what they had assumed was the cycle.
Okay.
But now this insurance person was saying, you know, you're actually probably at like a 7 or 8 year cycle. Do you see that happening in beef cattle? And then similarly in the other commodities and stuff, what does a cycle look like for those? And can you elaborate on any of that?
Yeah. Well, first I would say kudos to your mom for buying that insurance, because USDA and especially the Risk Management Agency, they have come up with, that's been another development in agriculture, but they've come up with livestock insurance products that are becoming much more effective for livestock producers. Like the price that your mom insured at, you know, she got above and beyond that floor price. What's smart is you can pick that floor price, and that is basically you can pick your price. You have to, you know, pay for your policy, but you can pick your price, and you can go back to your daily job of just taking care of those animals. That's what our price is going to be in, say, November. That's what we're set at. We're locked in. So all we have to do now, that's our break-even price. That's our price to be comfortable, whatever. Mm-hmm. You can just go back to caring for your animals. That's a lot off your mind, a lot off your mind. If the price is better than your floor price, super. You've got a better price, and you pay the price for the premium of your policy, you're good to go. If it falls below that, well, you've got your policy to help cover you. Where was I going with this, Madison? Oh, yeah, kudos to your mom for doing that. Okay, yeah. So the cattle cycle, the insurance person said 6 to 8. Is that it?
I think they said 7 to 8.
7
they
to
were
8?
Saying that, so point of reference was that my dad had passed away in 2015, and they were saying that, so it hasn't been this high where we're at right now since that point. But if it was a 10-year cycle, we'd still be another year or two away from being in that range. So they said that with where we're at right now, it's tightened up, and who knows, maybe that's COVID, long lasting effects, you know, but I was just curious if you've seen this or noticed this, or, you know, are there other cycles that are getting affected by something that are normal cycles?
I think you're onto it. I think the pandemic changed everything. Normally in our cattle cycle, if you listen to the folks at USDA and market analysts and stuff like that, if you pay attention to what they teach and what they teach in colleges, is your normal cattle cycle between the low and the low, like we have right now. Our U.S. cattle herd is the lowest it's been since 1951. USDA just came out with a report not too long ago here that confirmed that. But if you go from the low to the low, it can be from 7 to maybe as much as 12 years. And so the 10-year cycle, that's a good rule of thumb. And has it changed? Maybe, because like you said, the pandemic changed a lot of things. Nobody could have predicted it, and we're still in the aftermath of it. We're still learning new things. And so I think nobody's wrong. Your mom's right. I think the insurance guy is right, because we're in new territory here. And when it comes to beef prices in the year ahead, from just because we have to rebuild that herd, beef prices are expected to stay strong through at least 2024 from most of the things I've been reading. That's great if you've got cows and beef to sell. That's super. If you are trying to rebuild your herd, that's not the best news. Again, good for one, maybe not so good for the other guy. If you're trying to rebuild your herd, that becomes more expensive to do so. So where was I going with that, Maddie? So you're rebuilding your herd. Okay, beef prices should be good throughout this year, just because of the fact that we've got low cattle numbers. We're going to have to try and retain more heifers, build up that herd again. Now, because of weather, the drought, and we lost so many cattle that we had to cull and sent into the system, more supply, pressure on prices. pandemic, we have supply chain disruptions. We have worker disruptions at factories. We can't process the animals that we have. Things get backed up. Things go to heavier weights, all sorts of different things. Farmers turn to direct marketing. We've got a hog that we're going to butcher. We're on Facebook right now, and we'll sell you pork chops or whatever. Lots of different things during the pandemic that we've learned. So when it comes to the beef prices, tell your mom that, again, good job buying that insurance policy, and continue to do so in the future. And what was the other thing? Dairy? You're on the dairy side.
She
of
does
things?
do some dairy. Hopefully she'll get out of that at some point here. She's she's 60. I don't even know what she is. Mid-60s.
Okay. For the dairy industry, I've heard, as you know firsthand, a lot of headwinds out there. A lot of feed costs and lower milk consumption and whatnot. So I've heard more headwinds when it comes to the dairy industry. So, yeah, those are the trends I've kind of heard about.
Yeah.
Did I even get close to answering the question,
I think
Madison?
you did a great job.
I think, it was a great
That's
job.
a lot of great information.
The only thing that I would add maybe as a question follow-up to that is what do you see as far as cycles in the grain market?
Oh, the grains? Well, they don't, at least, I don't want to say they don't follow cycles, but again, because of market trends, because of things that might be going on outside the markets, whether it be weather, whether it be government policy, biofuel mandates, things like that. I don't see anything as far as I don't see anything that would knock your socks off for a trend, I guess, this year. We, again, may see that increase in soybean crush capacity, more demand for beans. We can use more of those beans at home. I did at the Northern Corn and Soybean Expo this week. I was held at the Butler Machinery Building at the Red River Valley Fairgrounds. We did have a speaker at the meeting. His name is Peter Zion on Geopolitics, LLC, a futurist bestseller. He's got 4 different books. And I had a chance to speak with him before he gave his keynote address. And I asked him whether or not, in his words, and I'm kind of going to paraphrase, I asked him in his words, his thoughts on domestic renewable diesel production and biodiesel production and sustainable aviation fuel and all of these markets that we could capture. And they hold a lot of promise. I asked, can we capture those markets? Can we live up to the hope, to the promises that folks would like to see when, using sustainable aviation fuel, whether it be ethanol or whatnot in jets, or whether it be renewable diesel in our Navy fleet, those kind of things. And he said there was pros and cons. He was of the mind that he wasn't a fan that there were government mandates that were behind it. But he said also that if nothing else, with the domestic crush capacity that we build right here at home, that still opens up opportunities to sell that product to other parts of the world. And renewable diesel is very popular in several other countries of the world, especially in countries like India. And we've always got the California market. That's not exactly another country, but they're becoming more and more open to the idea of renewable diesel, especially in the California market, to relieve some of their pollution issues and whatnot. So, again, pros, cons, issues. But as far as cycles, I don't see... wheat acres have been having a heck of a time buying up acres the last couple of years. We've got the lowest planted acres in several decades. So, got to get those wheat guys back into the game, I guess, a little bit maybe.
Well, it's interesting that a couple of the farmers we've interviewed already, a few of them are like, well, I mean, it's all Red River Valley farming, so they're like, we do as little wheat as we can.
Yeah.
A
lot of guys maybe use it as a rotational crop after their sugar beets, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah. Wheat used to be king around here back in the days of the Bonanza farms.
Right. When we had Tim Cazette on, he was talking about how they were one of the first people to grow corn in Trail County. One of the first three, I think. One of the first three people
is that
in
right?
Trail County. Their farm was one of the first ones
be danged.
to grow it, and it was interesting just to hear him talk about, progressing from dairy cattle to, doing all crops, and that was, years and years ago. But.
Well, with today's genetics and crops and whatnot, around Wolford, North Dakota there, Durham wheat, that's what my grandfather, Jack Fulman, grew. Durham wheat, some sunflowers. He was an early adopter of sunflowers, and also flax. He grew flax, but Durham wheat up there on the same farm fields when I visit now in the summer and drive by the old farm, it's corn, it's soybeans, and the genetics have allowed those crops to slowly move further north.
Yeah, those growing days. I have a friend also that farms over by Fergus Falls, and he's like, "Yeah, you just get your growing days right, and everything works out well."
Yeah,
he's like, "Knee high by the 4th of July is very much so not true anymore.
Yeah.
If it's knee high by the 4th of July, you have some problems."
Yeah, and I've heard some retired university experts who are no longer, they're retired, so they can say whatever they want now. But they see, when it comes to climate change, they see the soybean belt expanding even further north, like from, you think of the 3I states and whatnot. A lot more of that acreage will slowly creep north because we might have a longer growing season, a potentially slightly warmer growing season. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had, I'm sure you hear all kinds of different conventional wisdom. If you had to look at conventional wisdom and you said, what's something that you would challenge, or maybe you don't have the data to quite back it up, but you're like, this doesn't quite sound right. Is there any kind of conventional wisdom that you can think of that you'd say you'd look sideways at?
Conventional wisdom. That's a tough question. I'm not sure.
What did Tim answer?
Tim's answer was actually that the conventional wisdom was that you have to have your crop to be able to sell it. And so he was talking about, pre-sales and things like that. And being able to contract it out, and then you use your insurances to back up when you don't have the yield that you have. And that was kind of his conventional wisdom that he said, I'd challenge it. I'd challenge it on that. Or,
boy, that's a tough question. Conventional wisdom I would challenge. I'm not very non-confrontational, Madison. I don't challenge a whole lot.
You just report what they say.
Yeah.
Don't twist it.
No.
Right.
I'm not the star of the show. I'm just telling you what the basketball players are doing down on the court. Conventional wisdom. Boy, I might have to pass on that one. I don't know.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's one of those that I feel like I'm going to get some controversial answer to someday, that it's going to be maybe not controversial, but more like a lightning rod type one. I don't know that I'm going to get that from the farmers around here, as we keep expanding this out.
Well, conventional wisdom. All Norwegians like lutefisk. That's not true.
There you go.
According to Milo Hudson Bueller, the piece of cod that passes all understanding.
Milo, he's a rock star,
He is a rock star from Strasbourg. Yes.
Milo.
Yeah, my dad had all the old cassette tapes of
really?
Milo. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Have you ever heard, Madison, have you ever heard Milo?
You haven't heard? Oh,
no.
my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
He's a rock star.
We're going to have to educate you on this one.
Okay.
Do you enjoy Weird Al?
Oh, yeah. I love Weird Al.
He is the farming version of Weird Al.
Yep.
Weird Al.
Yeah, man, he would be a fun one to get on here at some point. But
Yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah. So, as we're wrapping up here, when I was doing some research on you, I saw that you have Ag on Tap is your website, and you do some different speaking things. And one of my kids would be very upset if I didn't ask you one of the questions that you have on there.
Oh, really?
And the one that you said that you would answer is, can you hug an alpaca?
Yeah, and you totally can. I learned that. Yeah. So Egg on Top, that's kind of the brainchild of my wife Sabrina and I. Sabrina is also a farm broadcaster. We met at Commodity Classic, big national show, Phoenix, Arizona, in 2015, and we bumped into each other in Washington, D.C. at Washington Watch and a NAFB leadership conference, and hit it off. So she's from California, Fresno, Central Valley, very different crops from what we grow here. But we had farm broadcasting in common, and her father was also a farm reporter, many magazine articles, a writer, a photographer, and also a newspaper publisher at one point. My dad in radio, media, we had that in common, and just had our day-to-day general lives in common, lots of stuff in common. Anywho. Where was I going with this, Madison?
Why?
Oh, yeah, Egg on Top.
You got married.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got
Egg
married.
on Top. So, yeah, we got married, and we wanted to do a fun podcast together just on stories that maybe don't fit into our daily farm reports. So, yeah, we've had Egg on Taps about alpacas. We've had them about reindeer. We've had them about sunflowers, just different topics things that we found to be fun that didn't fit anywhere else. Long form, just visit with somebody and learn stuff.
One last question that only our longtime listeners will probably understand.
Okay.
When I say sunflower smell to you, what do you think? You like that smell?
Smell of sunflowers?
Yeah, like sunflower seeds.
Oh, seeds?
Yeah, seeds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It wouldn't make you like get sick or anything, or
No, that would bring back memories of either baseball or
Sure.
fishing or
like very fond memories.
Yeah, good memories.
Like happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something I don't know about the smell of sunflowers?
I don't know, Adam.
Well,
do you want to
if
tackle
you-
this one?
If you listen to episode 4, you'll find out that I actually cannot stand the smell of sunflower seeds.
Really?
Which is amazing because I'm a big baseball player. I
Yeah.
coach baseball in the summer. I played all the way through high school. I grew up on a farm.
What do you do in
It's
the
one
dugout?
of life's mysteries here.
Yeah,
that we're trying to get
It
to
really
the bottom
is,
of.
but it's like one of those smells that, like, you list those smells that you just can't stand.
Yeah.
It's right on that list for me.
Wow.
And I've smelled some pretty bad stuff growing up on a dairy farm.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Because we got into it yesterday or today or something again, where I'm trying to list like some really gross things that happen on a farm, and he's like, nope, worse is sunflower seeds for me.
Really?
I don't know about worst. I mean,
It's up there, you said, though.
It's definitely up there. I mean, you could name off some pretty gross things, especially when you're dealing with birthing cows.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's some pretty bad ones in there, especially some different stories that may come up at another point.
Huh, sunflower seeds.
I know, right?
I'll be danged.
That's what makes Adam, different.
Wow.
That is, yeah.
Well, different strokes, different folks, I guess. Yeah.
Well, like I told you earlier, I'm an engineer, so I mean, difference between an extroverted and an introverted engineer is that an extroverted engineer looks at your feet instead of their own. There's no such thing as eye contact.
Yeah, and that's, my wife would argue probably differently, but I consider myself to be an introvert too. I think I'm just shy, but the nature of the job, you got to go out and do it. So you got to be an extrovert. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Off hours, Rusty is an introvert.
Yeah.
And when he's in, he's in.
Yep.
He's in. Yeah.
When the mic comes on, it's time to do a job.
I tell you what, whenever, it's something. And I know, some people listening to this podcast are probably listening to KFGO, and it's even just listening to Rusty. It's definitely, you could learn something even as a broadcaster. Even when I got to KFGO, trying to learn how to be on air, how to speak on air professionally and confidently, and just listen to Rusty for a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll get that. So,
Thanks, man.
of course. So
Yeah,
thanks for
thank
coming in today, Rusty.
Yeah, heck, it was
appreciate it.
fun. Yeah. Wish I had better answers about the conventional wisdom thing.
That's okay.
We'll have you back sometime.
We'll have you
Yeah.
back. We appreciate your insight on some of the things. One thing is that, the farmers really wanted to get some insight on what's going on.
I thought of something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because it costs more doesn't mean it's better. Whether you're talking about fishing poles or golf clubs or golf balls, baseball gloves, I don't care what it is. Just because it costs more doesn't mean it's better. How's that?
Or like a brand new air seeder, right?
Or a brand new air seeder. That's exactly it.
Rebuild one with Red E.
Mhm.
Did I just give you guys a plug?
I
might
think
have.
so. How about that?
Yeah.
That's great.
That's why Madison is in the marketing group, that he actually thought of that right away.
Always
You
thinking
sneaky
of
devil. Here, I thought you want to talk to me.
Well, I really appreciate coming in. I think a lot of value came from this conversation, and I think farmers will be interested.
Well, thank you, Madison. I don't know. You let the audience decide. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that the numbers will show when we post this. That
Yeah.
they are interested in what you have to say,
Yeah.
and I am very appreciative as well that you came in and
You're welcome.
giving our fledgling podcast here a shot,
A boost.
a boost.
Yeah, no worries.
It'll be great.
No.
So.
And just remind everyone, your schedule every day, where they can listen.
Well, you can get all your farm and ranch information at KFGO.com. Check us out on there. That's the mighty 790 AM, 104.7 FM, or 94.1 KFGO.
Well, thanks for listening to After Hours Ag. Thank you so much to Rusty for coming in and sharing your wisdom and being able to just to talk to our farmers, talk to our people that aren't farmers, and kind of learn a little bit more about farming, a little more about markets. So anyway, with that, we'll wrap up, and thanks for listening, and let's keep farmers farming.